Hello, District 90 students, and welcome back to the 2021 school year. My name is Mrs. Klier, and I will be discussing with you today on how to be a good remote learner. When we think about remote learning, some of it will look different than it did in the school, but some of it will also look very similar as it did in the school. So some different areas we're going to talk about today with their similarities and differences is workspace, organization, live lessons, and independent work. And again, we're going to talk about how that is both similar and different from being in-person learning. So the first thing is the workspace. So when you think about going into your classroom, kind of think about the atmosphere and the workspace that you have. So when you walk into a classroom, usually you're sitting in a desk or at a table. So try to have something similar to that at home. If you don't have a desk, that's okay. It can be a countertop. It can be just a table, like a kitchen table, but make sure you have a chair that's an appropriate height and you're able to sit up and lean against it if you need to. Also in school, you have some technology usually. At school, it's a Chromebook. If you have a Chromebook at home, great. If not, a different laptop will work or even an iPad. And whenever you get to class, you usually have all the materials that you need for that class period. Pencils, pens, markers, notebooks, textbooks, whatever you need, make sure you have those materials within your workspace. Also, it's going to be important that at home we try to minimize distractions. So you're probably not going to want to work in front of a TV with it on, or while you're playing a game, or in a room that's too loud for you to not be able to focus. So make sure, you try to minimize the distractions best you can for your workspace. Next is organization. That's going to be very important to staying organized while we are remote learning. So when you think about organization at school, the first thing that pops in your mind is probably your locker where you store all your materials. So somehow you're going to have to get organized at home. So you're probably going to want storage for your books, notebooks, folders, and all your materials. So you can have crates, you can have bins, you can even just store it in your backpack and keep your backpack next to you, a basket, an empty box. Whatever works for you, just make sure that you have some kind of storage so it's organized and you're not losing materials. It's also a good idea to continue to use a planner just as you would if you were in school. Still write down your daily dues that you do in class, write down daily assignments that you might have. It's going to help you plan and make sure that you're turning everything in on time. Another item that you can do if you don't have a planner is you can just make a list of to-do items. You can just do that on a separate piece of paper. You can do it on Post-it notes. You can throw them away as you do them. But whichever way helps you keep track of items that are due is going to be important. And again, make sure you have all your materials in one place, and that it also includes pens, pencils, erasers, scissors, things like that as well, not just textbooks, markers, or paper and pencils. Make sure that you have your login information near you. So maybe that's for ClassLink or Google Classroom. It can be on a Post-it note that's on your desk. It could be placed inside your planner, but it's going to be handy to have that information in case you forget it those first couple of weeks of school. Also, teachers' emails are going to be kind of important to have near you. That way, if you need to get into contact with them, you can email them directly. Live lessons. So these are going to be different than in person because in person you have live lessons all the time. So now that we're remote learning, you're not always going to have live lessons. You're just going to have a limited time of live lessons with your teacher. So some different possibilities that you could have with live lessons is you could do whole class, which is just that. The whole entire class is on the Zoom call. When you have that, it's going to be good to try to use good Zoom etiquette. So it might be good to mute yourself upon entering. So as the teacher is letting people in, that's not a whole lot of background noise and people talking. You can unmute yourself when instructed to. If you are on mute, an easy way to do it instead of clicking it on and off is just to hold down the space bar. While you're holding down the space bar, you're unmuted, and then as soon as you let go of it, you're muted again. It's also a good idea to wear headphones. Not only does it try to help you focus on the screen in front of you and listen to what you're hearing, but also it can help maybe decrease background noise. So if you can't go into a quiet room, maybe that can kind of soundproof out some of that. Also, it's a good idea not to chat with classmates unless you're instructed to by your teacher, just because if you're chatting with them in the chat box, then you're not paying attention to what your teacher is saying. It's going to be very important, since you are having limited time with your teacher, that you are paying attention and following all the teacher's directions when they ask you to do something. Another way they can use Zoom calls is by doing independent or small group. So independent means just you and the teacher one-on-one, or a small group might be you and a couple other classmates in with the teacher. Usually if they're going to do that, they might have an assignment that they want to discuss with you. So if that's the case, make sure you come prepared with that assignment. It could be just they want to check in and see if you guys have any questions. So make sure that you have questions or comments beforehand, so you're not trying to think on the spot of things. If they plan on doing an activity with you, make sure you have materials that you need for all that. Maybe it's just pencil and paper. Maybe it's a dry erase board. Maybe it's some markers. But make sure you come to that prepared, so you're not spending your time with your teacher finding the things that you need. Again, just like with whole class, it's a good idea to wear headphones when possible. So again, you can focus, decrease background noise, and follow all the directions from your teacher. Independent work is going to look very similar as it did in school. It's going to be work that you are doing by yourself. So these are just different possibilities that could be assigned for independent work. Could be more than this. Your teacher might not assign any of this. These are just examples that I thought of. So your teacher may give you practice problems after a lesson's been delivered to work on yourself. They could have you work on Alex. They could have you watch a pre-recorded video that either they recorded themselves or they found on the web somewhere. They could have you completing a worksheet. They could have you read for an assignment or for fun. Or they could have you write in a journal or do a different writing activity. Again, these are all just examples of independent work, things that once your teacher gives you directions, you can do on your own, and then you can email questions if you have them. When you are working independently, it's important to remember a few things. First and foremost, it's important to read all of the directions and make sure you're following them. If you read them once, I'd read them again and read them one more time, so you make sure you understand what that assignment is asking you to do. If you continue to have questions, then email your teacher. But again, email them after you've read all the instructions. It's also a good idea maybe to email instead of commenting on a thread in Google Classroom, just because depending on how many people are commenting on that, sometimes it's hard for the teacher to follow and respond to all of that. And an email would go directly to your teacher and you know they would see it. Also, when you're working independently, if you have issues with the assignment or something's not working, try to troubleshoot the tech issues on your own first. Try refreshing your browser, or try checking the internet connection. If you're watching a video, make sure it's not on mute. Try logging out and logging back in. But try to kind of troubleshoot some of those issues first, because sometimes you guys could figure it out rather than just emailing a teacher and having us help, because we can't always see what you're doing. Also, don't turn in blank assignments into Google Classroom. I think in the spring there were some issues with students turning in blank assignments, so make sure that you either type directly on the assignment that your teacher assigned, or you're uploading the appropriate materials that you need to turn that assignment in. It's also a good idea to mark that as complete after you've turned it in, just so then it kind of helps you stay organized as well. So here's our strategy for becoming a good remote learner. First, we're going to set ourselves up for success by having a good workspace that is going to stay organized. We are going to work hard on those assignments our teachers give us and during those Zoom calls. We're going to follow all of our directions so that we ensure that we're getting complete credit for those assignments that were assigned. And that's all going to lead us to being a good remote learner. I know District 90 students are going to be great at this remote learning thing. We had some kinks in the spring, but I think everybody learned from that, and we're going to come this school year and be fantastic. Teachers are very excited to be working with students again. I think everybody's sad that we're not going to be able to see your smiling faces in person, but we are excited to get back in those classrooms and at least be able to connect with you through technology. So again, we're going to rock it. You guys are going to be great remote learners.